Hey friends, I'm going to talk some about my trip preparations for my trip to Alaska. First, I'm going to talk about how I get my camper out of my garage and get it onto the truck, which is a bit of a process. And then I'm going to talk about some of the packing and how my camper works. So what I'm doing here is unhooking the wires to the tailgate, because before we put the camper on, I need to take the tailgate off. Before I can take the tailgate off, I need to unhook the wires that attach the tailgate to the truck. These wires control the backup camera. So my friends have a trailer, and they come over with their trailer, and we hook the trailer up to the truck. And after we raise the camper up high enough for the trailer to fit under it, then we back the trailer up underneath the camper. And well, first we just do it by hand, and then we hook up the truck to the camper. Sorry, we hook up the truck to the trailer, and then we lower the camper onto the trailer, and then I pull the camper out that way. Now, this is a process that we developed through trial and error. My friends Rob and Hester, who have been invaluable in this journey. So I back the truck up, and we hook it up to the trailer. And then once we get it hooked up to the trailer, then we can put the weight on of the camper onto the trailer, and raise the legs up so they have clearance getting out of the driveway. And then at that point I can pull the whole thing out.
That's clear. About a foot.
So once we get the camper on top of the trailer out into the driveway, we put the weights back on the legs to get the weight off of the trailer. So then we can pull the trailer out from underneath of it and then back the truck underneath of it. So now at this point I back the truck up, and we're going to have to raise the camper up a ways to get the clearance we need for the bed. And then backing the truck up into underneath the camper is a bit tricky because it's very tight fit, and it takes a little while, but we eventually get it.
That's a lot of strain, Rob.
Okay. Alright. Looks good here.
Yep.
Okay. Go back.
And once we get the truck underneath the camper, before we can lower it all the way, there's 4 large ratchet straps that hook the truck to the camper. And so that takes me getting inside and hooking up from the inside, and then Rob and Hester managing the hooks when they go into the truck or into the truck bed. And then once all those are hooked up and the slack is taken out, then we can lower it the rest of the way and then tighten up the straps once it's all the way on. Once the camper's all the way on the truck, then we take all the weight off the legs and retract the legs, and then tighten up the ratchet straps inside. So it's called a pop-up because the roof pops up, soft side on top. Before I can raise the roof, there's 4 latches on the 4 corners. So I need to release those 4 latches, and then there's an electronic motor activated by a switch inside that I push, and then that starts to raise the roof. So this is the Phoenix pop-up with the roof fully extended. The white things hanging down are the legs that you put the weight on the legs in order to remove the camper from the truck. It's got one window on the hard side, on the passenger side there. In the back, you can see the door that's open, and then also on the right-hand side, that black thing is the air conditioner. It's got a cover over it. And then the other bracket on the left side is where I could put a generator, but I normally take the hoses and store them up there. And then on the left-hand side, the driver's side, that door is for where the propane tank is, and that supplies propane to the stove as well as the furnace. And then to the left of that is where the fresh water or the city water comes in. And then there's latches on the corners, is what you latch once you collapse the roof and put it in driving mode. That black thing along the side is an awning, which I haven't used yet, but I plan on using it this trip. And then it's got windows all the way around on the soft side. They're pretty nice. You can open them up. You get a lot of breeze, a lot of airflow that way. Inside, you have the windows there. You can see you got a furnace, the air conditioner up on the right there. And the window has 3 coverings. So it has the dark out covering, it has a vinyl cover, and then a screen. So you have a lot of options there. And then down there, the white thing is the freshwater tank. The black thing is the lithium battery. And then that window looks forward into the cab of the truck. You have the refrigerator, and then the bed up there is where I sleep. And that area to the right I showed you earlier, that's going to be covered with cushions, and that goes into like a couch area. Refrigerator, sink with 2-burner stove, wet bath, toilet, and then some storage underneath the sink there. And then the kind of control panel with the water heater, the water pump, the furnace, and then a 110 outlet if I'm hooked up to shore power. Underneath I have a little bit more storage under here, and then these are where the ratchet straps attach, at least on the passenger side. They're underneath that storage area on the driver's side. One of the first things I do after my camper's been in storage for a while is to sanitize the freshwater tank. So there's a solution, you put in a certain amount of solution, and then you fill it the rest of the way with water, and then you let it sit for a day or two, let it slosh around while you're driving, and then you drain it, and then you can fill it with fresh water. So making the bed is not too difficult. A little more involved than at home, obviously. The mattress is not very thick, but it's surprisingly comfortable. I've taken several trips and slept pretty well in here. One of the other things that's nice on the inside here is these puck lights throughout on the roof, which are handy. You can turn those on and off. They're also powered by the solar. There's actually room up here for queen size, but I opted for the full size because then I have a little bit of storage up here forward, and I can put some like extra blankets if it's cold out. I got my down slippers up here, that kind of thing. Obviously things that I don't want to worry about trying to access while I'm on the road. Something I would only need once I get to someplace for overnight. So the last thing I put on is a top sheet over the blanket because my dog Missy spends most of the night down here on the dinette area, which wakes into a bed, which I'll show you later. But usually in the middle of the night she gets up in bed with me. So this top sheet just kind of keeps the blanket clean and is easy to shake out between washings. So that's that. I mentioned the Fantastic fan earlier. This is a Fantastic fan, and what's nice is you have that fan pulling the air up and out, and you have this little window here open, and you can get a nice cross breeze. And then even more so, obviously, if you have the other windows open up here. This is the basement. I like to store things that I don't necessarily use all the time, but want it to be accessible, so that means that's where a lot of the dog food goes, and a few other items, which you'll see later. So now I'm going to collapse the roof. The first thing you have to do is make sure there's nothing up on the bed. Everything's got to be off the bed. And then make sure everything's off the counter, make sure that glass cover is closed, and make sure the toilet area is clear, there's nothing in the way there. And then I do the same thing all the way around, just double check, making sure there's nothing going to be in the way. Then open the fan, turn it on so it's blowing out, and then I crack that window, which creates an internal suction which pulls the walls in as the roof comes down. And once the roof is all the way down, I turn off the fan, close the fan cover, close the window, and then I go outside and check the latches. In addition to checking the latches, I make sure all the doors are closed, the legs are all the way in the extended position or in the retracted position, and just do a general walk around, making sure everything's clear, that the awning's retracted all the way, the latches are tight, and I basically do this after every time I stop, just to make sure everything's okay. So packing my food I found to be challenging because there's just not a lot of space for storage. So I've got my protein powder, oatmeal, tea, baking supplies, cereal. I've got some nut butter that I got from Costco, which I'm looking forward to trying out. And lots of spices. I like to eat fish about every other day, so canned salmon, plus I've got some of these packets of tuna and salmon that are super easy to make, and they're lighter than the cans, easier to store. Some taco seasoning, which I like to use on ground turkey or ground beef. Power bars, more seasoning, sauces, chickpeas, my favorite for salads, and then I found some baked beans with no sugar added, so that's going to be fun to try. So here's some under sink storage, some dishes, pots and pans, which are in the back, dishwashing supplies, utensils. Underneath here I've got some cleaning supplies, first aid kit, and then my fridge, which isn't all the way full there yet, but shows you a few things. And then this is the basement, some more dog food, and my little hand vacuum, which is very useful. I use it all the time. So that's it for now. Hitting the road actually tomorrow, and Missy and I are really looking forward to it.